I'm going to speak about her story of Dutch and Flemish art. And let me introduce these six women to you. Obviously, you will know them, but I can introduce them as well. Catharina van Hemesse, very small in the middle. Clara Peters at the right. Michaelina Woutier, Judith Leister, Gesina Terborg, and the sculpture is at the Rijksmuseum and it is Rachel Ruys. My first question is, why are many people not familiar with women artists? And it has all to do with the canon, because art of itself is as old as humanity, but art history as an academic discipline is more recent. It's mid 19th century when the first canon for an academic discipline was created, just like the history of music, the history of literature, the history of religion. All those histories were uplifted to an academic level. And it's important to know the context, the perspective of the 19th century, because otherwise you won't understand why they just put the woman aside. Great masters were supposed to be, from a 19th century perspective, a white Western male artist. Well, at this moment, I'm not going to discuss about white and Western. I leave it to others. I'm going to say something about male versus female artists, because it was definitely in the 19th century that they didn't include women artists into the canon. So you can say that the history of art is definitely his story. And this all has to do with the so-called cult of the true womanhood. It's the separate domains. It's private versus public, and it's a cult who is created at the beginning of the 19th century, and true women, sophisticated women, were supposed to inhabit the private domain. They had to run the household, they had to rear the children, they had to take good care of their husband. Their husband was away. He can enter that public domain to have his profession or do whatever he wanted, but she had to stay at home and do all the things belonging to their home. Well, I mentioned here, true women are white, there are Western, there are religious, Christian, of course, and they belong to the middle and upper class. I don't talk about the lower classes, because you can imagine lower class people are everywhere, public, private, they are just everywhere. But artists are from middle and upper class. To illustrate this cult of true womanhood, I picked a painting by the Dutch artist Maria Lavargue. And of course, there were women who didn't want to belong to this cult and who want to step out of the protected domestic sphere. And well, the society in those days, and I mean 19th century, they considered those women to be lost, to become a fallen woman. And I illustrate this with Vincent van Gogh's painting. And it's interesting to see that Charles Baudelaire, the French writer, wrote a manifesto, Le Peintre de la Vie Moderne, the painter of the modern life. And into this writing, he declared that modernity, la modernité, is almost the same as prostitution. And that's something many people don't remember nowadays. But it has all to do with the empire, the Second French Empire, and Napoleon III, who legalized the prostitution. And that means that women were allowed to be in the public domain, but it became the public woman, just like the painting by Van Gogh you see here. And you can imagine that in this context, the true women, the civilized women, were not allowed to be professional painters, to be outdoor painters, to be painters at all. And when you create a canon in this perspective, you don't put women artists into it, because otherwise those women won't stick to their private sphere. Well, I mentioned reality was quite different because we have lots of 19th century fantastic women painters, also within realism, impressionism, post-impressionism, but I'm not going to discuss it right now. I'm going to take you to the male gaze, how we call it, which is very persistent from the 19th century till the day of today. And it has all to do with repeating the canon, and competing it is confirming it. It will be persistent. So you will create a truth on his own. And to illustrate this, I'm going to show you this magnificent painting by Judith Leister. And it belongs to the Musée du Louvre, the Louvre Museum in Paris, since 1914. And there's something to do with this painting. Well, yesterday I went to the Louvre website. I wanted to know what are they writing about this painting. And I saw painting very influenced by Frans Hals and Jan Minse Molenaar. Well, Frans Hals, all of you are very familiar with him, I guess. And Jan Minse Molenaar was the husband of Judith Leister. Not when she painted this painting, but they married in 1636. However, and that's interesting, there is no primary source confirming Leicester being very, very, very influenced, très influencé, by Hals or Molenaar. Yes, they knew each other in the 17th century, and that's all. The fact that she is very influenced by those men is a typical 19th century perception, which is repeated and confirmed, and everybody is saying the same thing. But it's good to keep in mind that Hals was not the great master in 17th century Haarlem. Neither was Jan Minse, and neither were a lot of painters we nowadays have in our canon. So what happened? Why is the Louvre telling this in 2021? And why was the Louvre telling this in 1914? It has all to do with a person called Théophile Thoré. It's a French writer, and he went to Haarlem. Well, he went to several places, specific for now. I want to talk about his visit to Haarlem in 1866. And he saw some incredible paintings by Frans Hals. And he loved it. And he thought, wow, these paintings, these resemble the paintings in Paris who are rejected by the Paris Salon. Paintings we nowadays call impressionist paintings. And he watched Frans Hals and he said, well, Frans Hals, c'est une moderne. Frans Hals is a modern painter. He's just like the impressionist. And watch, Frans Hals is in the Louvre. Frans Hals is everywhere. So it is important for the contemporary people in 19th century Paris to notice that Frans Hals is so important. So he published 2 articles in the Gazette des Beaux-Arts about Frans Hals being so modern and so important. And it's due to Théophile Thoré that a huge Hals mania arises, not only in Paris, but in the whole world. Haarlem became a place of pilgrimage. Every artist went to the Netherlands to visit Haarlem to see the paintings by Frans Hals. He was the 19th century hero of modernism. And well, you see this beautiful painting, which is in the Mauritshuis today. You see the loose and swirling brush strokes by Frans Hals, but it's interesting to remember that Frans Hals was long dismissed by painting this way, and he was as forgotten after his death as Judith Leister was. So it's bringing Frans Hals back to life, you could say, what Théophile Thoré was doing with these articles. But everybody was reading it and was enthusiastic about it. Well, back to the painting. The painting was sold at the end of the 19th century, and in 1893, underneath a false signature of Frans Hals, the monogram by Judith Leister was discovered. Well, this was something huge. This was something very interesting. Someone put a false signature of Hals above the monogram of Judith Leister. A reattribution became obvious, of course, but we must see this reattribution in the context of the late 1800s with its typical male gaze, which put Leister in the shadow of Frans Hals. She could not be the hero he was by Thoré. I make a bigger picture of the monogram so you can see it at the left. And if you're wondering where is that monogram, just focus on the left foot of the young man and it's just above him on the carpet on the table. But question, could this female painter just discovered in the late 1800s, could this female painter, Judith Leister, be an independent artist in her own time? From 19th century perspective, 19th century point of view, definitely not. Because when she was independent and she could walk through the public domain, she would not be a sophisticated woman. She would not be a true woman. So it's important to know that you always have to do with different eras. Here you see the beautiful self-portrait of Judith Leister, which nowadays is in the National Gallery of Art in Washington. And this was her self-portrait by which she was accepted in the Guild of St. Luke in Haarlem in 1633. From the 19th century perspective, she became a student, a pupil, and at least a follower of the great hero Frans Hals. And this is an assumption stayed even today. At first, initially, this self-portrait was regarded as a Frans Hals as well. But you have to go to the primary sources to see who was Judith Leister. And I will quote two. This one is in 1628. It's by Samuel Amsing. He writes a description of the city of Haarlem, and he includes as well Judith Leister. You see the Dutch text, which I've translated into English, but you maybe see the red stars I put in it. And there you will read, see here is someone else who paints with a good, keen sense. And the star goes to the other one, and that's Judith Leister. So before she even entered the St. Lucas Guild, she was mentioned here in this description by Samuel Amsing, and he thought of her of someone who paints with a good, keen sense. So he was very enthusiastic about her. But there's another one. After she got married, remember I told you she married in 1636. This one is when she already is married to Jan Miense Molenaar. And Theodor Strevel states that there also have been many experienced women in the field of painting who are still renowned in our time and who could compete with men. And among them, one excels exceptionally, and that's Judith Leister. And she's called the true leading star in art. Well, see her brilliant self-portrait, see her magnificent genre piece, and see the Louvre, which with the small detail. And if you focus on her monogram, you see the G from Judith, the L from Leister, and you see an arrow and you see the star. She is the leading star of Haarlem in the arts. It's not only with Judith Leister that her works were attributed to, in this case, Frans Hals. It was a common way of doing so. And I think Clara Peter's solution for false attribution is really magnificent. Look at this painting, which is in the Mauritshuis since 2012. And I'm really glad the Mauritshuis has this in their collection. I'm going to show you a little details made by Clara Peters to state that this is only her painting. Look at her little self-portrait. She just made it here. No one can paint it over because the picture is not beautiful anymore. And there's another one. Look what she's done here. Just a unique way of marking her name into the picture. And with these details, you also see how beautiful she paints. Of course, this painting is into the CODART canon. And here I put the 5 women artists who've entered the CODART canon. And I'm really happy that they are into this canon, because my mission, my vision, my focus is her story of art should be known by everyone and should be told as well, because the women should stand next to the men in the whole world in art history as well. But to be honest, I still miss I miss some great female artists who definitely have the right to be part of this canon. So I choose some important women artists who cannot be missed. And I really want to share those artists with you. First of all, Catharina van Heemesse. She is a Flemish artist, and I think it's really important to realize that she was the first artist of male and female artists to create a self-portrait of an artist working at an easel. And it's this one you are seeing here. And she puts her name on it, she puts the date on it, we know everything about it. She's the first one, and she's pioneering this kind of genre, this kind of portraiture. And she was followed by many artists. To stick by the women, Sofonisba Anguinzola, Artemisia Gentileschi, Italian painters, but also we saw Judith Leister, and the next one I'm going to show you is Michalina Wautier. And I really think she should enter the CODART canon as well. Look at not only her self-portrait, but that really great painting. It's a large-scale painting. There are not many female artists working on such large-scale paintings. She has done it, and she was really the leading lady of Flemish Baroque. There was a brilliant exhibition in Antwerp a couple of years ago. If I remember it well, 2018. And well, I was very impressed by all her work showing in Antwerp. And the last but not the least one I really like to enter the CODART canon is Gesine ter Borch. And many people define her as an amateur, but she was regarded as a real artist in her own time, in her own home place, Zwolle. She was the daughter of Gerard ter Borch, but also the sister of another Gerard ter Borch. And he is known very well, but due to her family books which she made a lot of family books, and she made drawings into it. She drawings like her self-portrait you see here, but also the allegorical images like the triumph of the painting. And she is painting here herself, and you see it also in the little drawing that her picture is in triumph going up. So for her, painting is very necessary. She didn't marry because art is her life. These are her own words. The Rijksmuseum has a very fine collection of all her drawings. So these three women, I really want to see them in the canon as well. And of course, we are heading into the right direction. And in some respects, it is fair to say that much has changed over the past few years. When you compare it to the 19th century, many has changed. But however, we must not lose the sight of the fact that we are still at the dawn of equality in all perspectives. So I'm going to end my little lecture for you. I want to thank you all so much for listening to this, and I really hope I have inspired you to continue to accord women artists their rightful place alongside their male counterparts in the canon, in your museums, everywhere. In the end, the story of art is definitely his and her story. It's our story. So thank you very much.